Hey string players, today we are going to go over the lesson material for your very first lesson this school year. And I know everyone's really excited to get back into that, and so am I. So today is going to really be a review of things that we did last year. It's to get us back into the swing of things and review some of the really basic things that you need to know in order to be successful this year as a string player. So you all should have a lesson book at home, Essential Elements Book 1. And we're actually normally we'll hang out in just one page every lesson. We're actually going to look at 4 different pages this week because it is a review. So I'd like you right now to open up to page 6. Open up to page 6. And when you get there, you'll see on the top of the page, there is a yellow box with some information. This is similar to our lesson book last year, which had the big white box at the top with all of the new information. This year, it's a yellow box. So at the top of your page in the yellow box, you should see a diagram of your D string, Remember, depending on what instrument you play, it's in a different spot for everybody. Violins, it's not your lowest string, but the one next to it. That's your D string. Violas, it's not your highest string, but the one to the left of that, the next highest. So your second string from the right. That's the same for cellos, your second highest string, and basses, it's also your second highest string. So make sure you identify where that D string is, and you'll see the notes that we have to know how to play on the D string are E, F sharp, and G. So again, depending on what instrument you play, violins and violas, E is one finger. There's a space to your second finger for F sharp, and then right next to your F sharp is G, 3 fingers. So you have a big space and then close. So that's for violin and viola. Cellos, it's 1, 3, 4. So 1 is E, 3 is F sharp, and 4 is G. For bass, it's a little bit different. It always seems to be a little different for the bass. So E is 1 finger, F sharp is 4, and then your open G will serve as the G. You don't have to put a finger down for that. And the book also reminds you there should be a diagram up there showing you how your left hand should be positioned on your instrument. So I can just quickly show that to you on my instrument. So for violins and violas, I'm going to have my instrument up like this, and your left thumb, it's very important. Let me get this way so you can see it's just hanging out right here, nice and loose. You can see that on the diagram. It's not sticking up like this. It's not back like this. It's just hanging out right here. That's very important for your thumb to be there for violin and viola. And of course, we're using our fingertips, right? Nice rounded fingers when we play. If you're a cello or a bass, your thumb actually goes behind the fingerboard right here. Most of you should have a sticker there for where to put your thumb, and it hangs out right there. And then again, nice curved fingers. So a little bit different depending on what instrument you play. Thumb on the side for violin and viola, thumb on the back for cello and bass. Okay, so I have to flip my page, but you are still on page 6. As we're looking at page 6, the very first exercise, number 10, says, let's read G. Okay, and most of you should remember how to read this note G, but if you don't, for whatever reason, they've actually labeled it. So in the beginning of this book, they label the notes to kind of help you out, and eventually they take that away. So you can see for number 10, the entire line is just G's. So however you'd play that, whether it's 3 fingers, 4 fingers, or open for your instrument. And so this should be a very easy review for you. I'll play it for you just so you can hear. I'm going to use my bow. It actually indicates to do pizzicato, and you could choose to do that. Remember, we worked very hard on a beautiful bow hold, and if you've forgotten how to do that, you can go back and watch the video from last year about beautiful bow hold. But I'm going to get my instrument up, set my 3 fingers down because I'm a violin. If I was a cello, I'd put down 4, and a bass, I would just be ready to play an open string. And I'm going to play number 10 for you. So it should sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Rest. 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 Now, if that's something you're struggling with, take some time to make sure you know how to do that. I think for most people, that should be pretty easy. So I'm going to move on. Again, you don't need to turn. I'm turning to number 11. And number 11 says, let's read F sharp. So again, now your music will show you where F sharp is on the staff for you. Remember, every instrument reads a different clef, and so it looks a little bit different depending on whose music you're looking at. But you can see 11 is exactly the same as 10, but with F sharp. So I'm not even going to play that right now. We'll probably warm up with that in our lesson, but that can be something that you do on your own. When we get to number 12, liftoff, now we start combining the two notes, so F sharp and G. And again, they've been very nice and labeled them for you, but you have to start getting into the habit of knowing where they are. Is it a line note? Is it a space note? And which line or space is it? So right now I'm going to play number 12. I think most of you should be able to do this with me and feel pretty comfortable with it. So we're going to get our instruments up, get our fingers down, and be ready to play after all the G's and F sharp, right? Beautiful bow hold, bow right in the sweet spot. And let's hear this. Let's play this together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now F sharp. Back to G. Beautiful. For bass, this is a little bit more challenging because remember your G is an open string and your F sharp is 4 fingers, and you actually are going to have to cross strings. But for everyone else, it should be relatively straightforward and a nice review for you. Okay, and now it is on to page 7 for you. And this is just more practice using the D string notes. So we could pick a few of these to work on. We're going to, let's see, we will go to number 15, because 15 looks like it uses all of the notes. You can do 13 and 14 on your own at home, and we'll maybe have time to go through those this week. But again, this is a review, so a lot of this is stuff that you can do on your own. So I'm looking at number 15, the walking song, and there is something new in this that we haven't had the opportunity to talk about yet. It's something called a first ending and a second ending. So I want you to take your finger and point to the very beginning of walking song, and you should see that your first note is a G, right? We play G, G, F sharp, E, E, F sharp, rest. I keep going to measure 3, E, E, F sharp, G, 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 rest. And you should have gotten to the symbol that you know that's called a repeat sign. There's 2 dots, and repeat, of course, means go back and do it again. But over that repeat sign, there's a little box with a 1 in it. That's what we call a first ending. It means the first time you play it, the line ends in that way. Okay? The repeat means we go back to the beginning, and this time when we play, instead of going to the first ending, we skip over that and go to what's called the second ending. You probably could have guessed that it was called that. In this case, the first and second ending are actually the same. You're just practicing the process of going back and then skipping to the second ending. But often in music, and what you'll start to see later on, is that it could be different. So we have to start to get into the habit of doing that. So I'm going to play a walking song now with the repeat. And if you feel comfortable doing it with me, go ahead and play along. So remember, G is 3 fingers. Let me say for each instrument. For violin and viola, G is 3 fingers, F sharp is 2 fingers, E is 1 finger. Okay. Cello, G is 4 fingers, F sharp is 3 fingers, E is 1 finger. Bass, G is an open string, F sharp is 4, and E is 1. Notice that for all instruments, E is first finger. So that's kind of the one thing we have in common here. So I'm going to set my fingers down. Here's walking song with the repeat. 1, 2, here we go. Rest. First ending. Back to the beginning. Rest. Now the second ending. Beautiful. All right, so that's a review of notes on the D string. Again, I hope everyone feels pretty comfortable with those. If you're saying, this is kind of easy, that's a good thing. That means that next time you'll be ready to move on to something even more challenging, but it's always good to do a review. So now I'm going to have you flip with me to page 10, I believe. me make sure I'm telling you the right number. Yes, to page 10. Now, as you can see, page 10 is where we're talking about the A string notes. We just worked on the D string, now we're working on the A string notes. Except bass, again, it's a little different. You're playing notes on the G string, so bear with me and I'll talk about the bass in a minute. Okay, as we were looking at your A string, the notes that we're going to need to learn or remember how to play are B, C sharp, and D. Remember, we call that sometimes high D. It's not the same as your open D string. It's the higher octave of that note D. And so if you're a violin or a viola, it's going to be open for A, 1 for B, space to 2 for C sharp, and your D is 3 fingers. That's for violin and viola. Cello and bass, just cello, open for A, 1 for B, 3 for C sharp, and 4 for D. And then bass, it's always a little different for you. Your first finger is A, your fourth finger is B, and then you have to do that little shift that we learned last year where you go up and play 2 fingers C sharp and 4 fingers D. And if you forgot how to do that, we'll talk about that in your first lesson, just to make sure that we remember how to do that. And so if we look at the beginning of page 10, number 23, you'll see it looks really familiar to the stuff we were doing before on the D string. So this is all the same type of review, just with different notes. So maybe I'll pick number 23 to play. This high D, it's very important that we find that note and play it in tune. So let me show you what it should sound like. So take a minute to find that on your instrument, however you play it, 3 fingers or 4 fingers, depending on who you are. And now we're going to play through number 23. Okay, on these high Ds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Rest. 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 Very good. Again, 24 and 25 are all very similar. You can go through those on your own. And turning to page 11, actually, I take that back. Why don't we play number 26 together? Let's play number 26 together. Now we have some high Ds, some C sharps, and then we actually get to play some open Ds. And remember, those high D and open D, that's a special interval called an octave, and they actually sound similar to each other. Even though one is high and one is low, they still sound like they're the same note. They're related in some way. So we're going to play 26. This does have a first and second ending in it, so this is another chance to practice those repeats. Okay, and again, and let me just show you really quick, when you play the high D and then the low D, they should sound similar. So listen to this. Here's our high D and our low D. If you were a little bit off with your 3 fingers, it might sound like this. And they don't sound similar then. So you need to be right on the money with those 3 fingers, or 4, depending on what instrument you play. And that's what we're listening for in number 26. So we're going to get our fingers ready. We're going to play the whole thing with the repeats. 1, 2, ready, and. Rest. Rest. Back to the beginning. Rest. Second ending. Nice job. Okay. So now if we're looking at page 11, 27 is more of the same thing with the Ds and C sharps and open D. And then they add in the note B, okay, 1 finger for everyone except for bass. Bass, that's 4 fingers for you. And we can maybe play a couple of these from page 11, and I'll give you the rest to work on your own. Let's go to number 29. Number 29. We get a chance to play all of these notes on 29. Okay, so find that high D. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Rest. 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 Nice job. The little short one there, but we had a chance to play all of our notes. Okay. And then just looking at what is left on page 11, you have number 30. It's actually the same thing we just played, but it's up. It's going up. That's why it's called Right Back Up. And I think we'll end today with playing through number 31. Playing through number 31. And 31 is called Down the D Scale. Okay, and if that word scale sounds familiar, we spent a lot of time last year playing a D major scale. This is the backwards version of a D major scale. So we're going to do that together right now. It uses all of the notes on the D string and all of the notes on the A string, all those notes that we've just spent our time working on today. So this, again, is the ultimate review to make sure that you know all of these notes. Okay, so set your fingers, get your bow ready. 1, 2, 3, 4. Rest. 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 Good. Awesome. And it's not written in the book, but if you wanted to, you could do that same pattern going up the scale too. That would be another great review. Okay, so remember, this week is a review. We're doing all sorts of things that we did last year that we already learned, but we're just reminding ourselves about these things before we move on to new things. So your job is to be familiar with all of those exercises on all of those notes on every string that we just talked about. And at your lesson, we're going to go through those together. So we'll have a chance to play them, and then we'll move on to something new for next time. All right, so I'm looking forward to seeing everyone in their lesson, and let me know if you have any questions before that.